besties, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Kyin and this is Kyin is Booked. We're going to be talking about audiobooks today. I am a avid audiobook listener. There is not a time I'm not cleaning, diamond painting, putting away laundry, setting up my classroom. Any opportunity I have, I am listening to an audiobook. I've always got a couple on deck that I can like download and start playing. You know, like ones that I've had on my TBR for a while, a few that I have checked out from my library, or just kind of like comfort re-listens. And today we're not going to necessarily be doing like my favorite audiobooks ever or like my favorite audiobook narrators. Today I just want to focus on like the last couple of audiobooks that I listened to that I would highly recommend to you if you are into audiobooks. And yeah, so I've got 6 on this list. I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks, but they've been like series audios. So I'm only going to talk about the first book in the series, but I'll let you know like if I've listened to the entire series or, you know, what my recommendation would be. So the first one I listened to was the graphic audio of Fourth Wing. So we have the original Fourth Wing audio that I believe released like around the same time as the book released. I read the book the first time around and I didn't listen to the audio till a little bit later, but the graphic audio just came out. It came out in 2 parts, and this is essentially like a full cast narration, sound effects, like the whole shebang, and it's like part 1 and part 2. They cut it off at a really actually a pretty good part to like, you know, to spread out the graphic audio, but I really liked the full cast narration. I thought that part was really cool. This is actually the first graphic audio I've ever listened to, and it's a really immersive experience when you're like, you know, I've got your headphones in or like you're in your car, like they make the dragon noises, like the sound of people sparring with swords. Like I thought it was really, really cool and kind of like enhanced the story itself. Like I said, it's a full cast, so like there's so many different people who are like voicing the characters. I really liked too that everybody was very distinctive, because that's for me when like I'm listening to an audiobook that has a lot of characters. What really worries me is like I'm not going to be able to tell one character from the other, but obviously in a full cast, like it's really easy for you to know who's talking. They really start to develop like the mannerisms of the characters, which is like what I really liked. Like you knew exactly when Xaden was talking, like it wasn't a surprise whatsoever. So like I said, this is a 2-parter. I'm pretty sure you can get it on Hoopla, and you can buy them like with credits on Audible. I don't know if it's on Libby or not, because like obviously everybody's Libby and Hoopla is a little bit different, but I do know my Hoopla has it. But when all else fails, you can go to Audible. And just a plug here, I haven't listened to it, but the Iron Flame graphic audio part 2 just came out this past week. So if you really like this one, maybe jump into the next one. Like I said, I haven't listened to it personally. I have feelings towards Iron Flame, and we're just gonna leave it at that. Next one I recommend is Lady of Darkness. This is the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rourke, and that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly or not, but you know, I'm doing the best I can, guys. So this follows Scarlett Monroe, and she is essentially like a notorious assassin. She's part of the 3 like wraiths. She was raised in the Assassin's Guild from the time that I believe she was 7, because, you know, something happens to her mom. The assassin, the head of the Assassin Guild takes her in, and now we're present day, and she's met this general, this captain in the king's army, and there's something about him and there's something about her, and it's something about the 2 of them together. And we slowly kind of start to unravel secrets of like the Fae realm. And the big story is like humans weren't allowed in the Fae realm, and you know, like the wards were put up to like keep the Fae from coming to the humans. But everything that Scarlett thought she knew about her life is kind of about to be upended. I am on the 4th book in the series. There are 5 books. I've listened to all of them on audio. I've really enjoyed it. The first book is a single narration, so there's only one narrator in the first book. She does the voice for Scarlett, and then of course our male main character. She actually doesn't do half bad job for the guy voice. Sometimes I really struggle with the females doing the guy voices, which is why like I'm like super picky about like, you know, when I like a narrator, I like a narrator. But I believe she did like a really good job in the first book, and then you hit the second book and it's dual narrated for the rest of the series from my understanding. Like I said, I haven't made it to book 5 yet, but I am on book 4. These are really easy. Like I've been listening to it. I did some home improvement projects. I've been pulling weeds in the yard, and it's really easy to, because sometimes with romantic fantasy, it's a little difficult to keep up, but I felt pretty good about keeping up with it while I was still kind of working on other things. Next up, we have Empire of Sin, and this is by Rena Kent. And this follows Knox and Anastasia. And Knox is one of our British bad boys. And let's talk about, I'm not even going to tell you what this is about first. I'm going to talk about the fact that the male narrator has a British accent, and it is exactly how I picture Knox's voice in my head when I was reading, because I went back and forth. But we've obviously met Knox in earlier portions of the story. We first meet him in Royal Elite, which is the first series in the Renaverse. So we know who Knox is, and I've been like pretty excited to get his story. And I was even more excited when his voice came on to the narration, because like I didn't listen to a sample, I just went for it. And he had that English accent, and I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. So this follows Knox and Anastasia. Anastasia is, she's run away from her life, and she's trying really hard to put members of her family first. So she's given up everything she knows, has this really outlandish one-night stand with, now we know to be Knox. And he ends up being like one of the people who works at the new company she works for. She's in IT. She's always been really good with computers. And I don't want to say too much more because it definitely ties back to like mafia aspects. And it was just too good. I'm like telling you guys, like I loved this. And I really think I loved it so much because of a like small detail of Knox having the accent. And despite the fact he lives in America, and despite the fact that he's been there for a while, he hasn't lost that accent. So we do see there's a few cameos from characters that we've already met before. So I absolutely loved that. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this one. Basically like do it for the accent, okay? Next, we have Angel's Bud by Nalini Singh. So I've listened to her entire Side Changeling series on audio. So the first 15 books in the series, and then I think there's 7 or 8 books in the spinoff series. So I highly recommend that one as well. But we're not talking about that series right this second. We're talking about Angel's Blood. I'm so sorry. I really liked the narrator in this one. So this is a story of a vampire hunter who is called by an archangel like in the hierarchy, like they're at the top, and like nobody tells them no. And she gets called into Raphael the archangel's office, and he's like, I need you to help me hunt down another archangel because this archangel is like gone to the dark side. I'm assuming, I'm just gonna say the dark side. I don't really know how to explain it, but like that's what it is, right? So we spend this whole book of like push and pull and like the angst and all of this, and it's a female narrator, and so I was a little nervous about it, but I think she did a really good job of differentiating, number one, the male voices and the female voices, because there's a couple of female main characters. And also, too, it didn't feel too nasally when she was doing the male voice. And that's what normally gets me in audiobooks. And that's why I'm kind of like, I don't want to say like a snob, but if it's too high-pitched or like too nasally, it's not something that I can listen to. And that's just who I am, okay? But I definitely recommend this one. I love Nalini Singh like in general as an author, and this book was actually published in 2009. I don't know when Slave to Sensation, which is her Side Changelings book, was published, but I know she goes back and forth because she's still actively writing both series. So she goes back and forth on which one she's publishing next. And she, I want to say this is like 15 books. So I've only listened to the first book, but from my understanding, it's the same narrator throughout the entire series. So I also really like that too, when you kind of have a narrator that you can like fall back on or that you're used to. Next, we have The Bitter Truth by Shadora Williams. So this is a thriller. Okay, so where do I start? First, it is dual narrated. So you have, I want to say there are 2 male voices, but that's a lie now that I'm thinking about it. So you have one guy who voices all the males, and you have one person who voices all of the females. And I've really got to think and be very careful about how I explain this, because I don't want to give any spoilers away or anything like that. So essentially you have a power couple, right? And he has been doing some bad stuff, and she finds out about the bad stuff, and she's out for revenge, but it's crazy how she gets there. And it's messy, and it's political, and it's like rich people trying to think that they can get whatever they want to get and like stomp on the poor people, and your past coming back for you, and it's gritty. I thought like the timbre of the male narrator was perfection for like who I was imagining in my head as the male main character. And I really think that the female narrator did an excellent job kind of like moving between her roles, but also really establishing Joe's voice. She's the female main character of this series. Sorry, of this book, because there's only one so far. And I really just think too that they did a great job of like building the tension and like building the angst and building that level of like uncertainty around what was happening in the characters' stories. I think that they did a really good job of like giving that a voice. And I really liked the way like their two voices like paired together. Like it was, there was like not soprano, it was like kind of like deep. And I really felt like it was just really like, hers was light and fluffy and airy the way that like you would imagine the female main character, and his was like deep and had like a timbre to it, and like exactly how you would imagine like the alpha that comes out in this character. So really enjoyed it, highly recommend it. I do enjoy listening to like thrillers and what do you call it, like romantic suspense books as audiobooks, so definitely recommend this one. And the last one I'm going to recommend is A Crown of Cruel Eyes by Lana Petracek. And this is book 8 in the Fae Guardian series. So I've listened to this entire series on audio. It is dual narrated. I don't think that she has used the same narrator twice. I could be wrong, but like I feel like she did a really good job of picking narrators that have like very distinct voices for the specific characters that they're embodying in the narration of the story. So A Crown of Cruel Eyes follows oh my gosh, Erin and Trix. She is okay, time out. This is book number 8, and this is a story of Fae Guardians. Fae Guardians are chosen by the well, like their magic system, to be the people, the protector of the realms, essentially. There are 12 guardians, and they each shift into something different. The first 3 books follow the wolves, the next 3 books follow the vamps, and then the following 3 books follow the elves. I'm assuming we're gonna get the crow shifters at some point, but we'll see. So essentially this is a story, if we're looking like whole aspect of it, this is a story of like when magic turns dark. So we're 1,000 years in the future. Earth as we know it doesn't exist anymore because a nuclear bomb went off, and essentially everything is reviving itself. So we're into the future, and these specific women are waking up at specific times to help with specific parts of the prophecy. And they are the well-blessed mates to the Fae Guardians. And essentially what this means is like it's the top mates of all mates, and there's only a specific amount of them, and each of these females has something to give to trying to make sure that the magic system stays pure. I loved A Crown of Cruel Eyes. I love Aaron. He is a deaf hero, so he lost his voice. He lost his hearing 2 books previous when they were fighting this like really horrific monster, and he didn't like block his ears at the time that he was supposed to, and his hearing's essentially shot at this point. We don't know if he's ever going to get it back or not. Like nobody's sure if it's permanent or not, but it is definitely like really changed the way that he lives his life, and he's like super bitter, like very down on himself. And Trix kind of sees those like parts of him, but also at the same time she's like, oh my gosh, like we should come up with like our own version of like sign language so you and I can talk, and you know I need to learn how to read lips, and I need you, you know what I mean, like, and I'll make sure I'm always facing you. And she never really thought about it like he did as like a disadvantage or a disability, and she really kind of helps him like turn that framework around and make him realize that like, okay, yeah, you're right, he can't hear, but at the same time that doesn't make him less than. And I think it was just a really beautiful story of not necessarily Trix accepting him for who he is, but he accepting himself for who he is in the state that he is in currently. And I don't want to give away too many secrets because there's a couple of twists and turns, but I highly recommend like the series as a whole, and I definitely recommend the audiobooks. I listened to all of them on Hoopla, so hopefully like your Hoopla would have it, but I'm pretty sure they're also on Audible as well. So those are the 6 audiobooks that I've listened to most recently, the ones that I would just highly recommend that you guys definitely give a try. Like I said, I'll try to list the audiobook narrators either in the description box. However, like we all know, we can just click over to the Amazon and check out who the narrators are. And plus, this is just a focus on like some audiobooks that I think my besties would love. So with all of that being said, leave me a comment down below if you have any audiobook suggestions, especially ones that I can binge. I love a good audio binge because I've got a lot of house projects to do. Be sure to like this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead because we're going to be having some fun these next couple of months. And as always, my friends, my besties, I will see you in the next video. Bye.